What's up, everybody? Welcome to Hammerdown Motorsports. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Steve Fast, and here we are in the Hammerdown Motorsports shop. Now, behind me, we have our 2019 Ram Rebel, which I've had since the end of 2019. And if you guys have been following along, you know we've done a ton of work to this truck so far, and it's only about to get better. So behind you right now, I am looking at a whole lot of goodness that's going to be going in this truck. So let's check it out. And here it is, a whole lot of boxes. I had to clear out a whole bay just to lay all this out. And as you guys can see, we've got a big lift kit. And now I want to say a big thanks to Rough Country for sending this out to us. This is their 6-inch lift. You can see by the size of this spring, look at that. That's the rear spring. This thing is absolutely massive. And not to mention, they gave us the kit for the 6-inch lift and then the actual Vertex coilover setup with the reserve shocks for the front, and then in the rear, look at this rear shock. This thing is absolutely massive. Like, pretty much, I got the foam stuck on there. Check that out. This thing weighs quite a bit. This is no joke. That is absolutely insane. I can't wait to have this on the truck. And honestly, this is the kind of stuff you see in some pretty hardcore off-road trucks, like Baja trucks, where they're flying through the desert and all that kind of stuff. And I can't wait to take this on the beach, because to be honest, right now, I mean, for those of you who don't know, we do have a 3.5-inch lift on this truck right now. And this kind of, well, it is my fault. I put on the 3.5-inch SST lift from Ready Lift because I didn't want to cut the truck. There's like a little spot you have to cut if you want to do the full lift kit. And I figured, well, I don't know if I'm going to keep this long term, so I just want to get it up in the air, get it on 35s, have some fun with it. It says not to use it on the Rebel, and it also says not to use it off-road, because essentially what you're doing is you're spacing out your factory suspension, so then everything is just kind of riding at more of an extended geometry. And over time, especially with this, because I kind of pushed my luck by going 3.5-inch on a truck that already has a 1-inch lifted spring, and the CV axles are definitely not happy in this truck. They're running some angles that are not good. And recently on the beach, I did notice a little bit of vibration in 4-wheel drive. So yeah, I had to make a change. We're definitely keeping this truck around for a while. So now we have this beautiful setup right here, and we're gonna put it in the truck today. So I can't wait to share it with you guys. I can't wait to see how big this truck is gonna get with the 6-inch on it. And they say you can fit a 37-inch tire, and right now we're just sneaking by with a 35. So who knows what the future might hold. We'll have to see what this all looks like when it's done. But yeah, I am very excited to tear this thing apart, get our new goodies installed from our good friends over at Rough Country. And you can see our CV angle, which is my biggest issue right now. Being that the diff is not dropped, everything is just kind of stretched down. So that's a very high wear angle. I mean, obviously we're at full droop right now, but yeah, that's not making that CV axle very happy. But once our new kit's in, that'll be nice and straight, and we'll be good to go for a long time. So first up, we're gonna take our 36mm socket and get our axle nuts off. Then you're gonna take your 21mm and get your tie rod nut off. Then we're gonna take a 21mm socket, and we're gonna take the 2 caliper bolts off the back side. And before you pull this completely off, make sure that you unhook your ABS line from where it attaches to the flex hose. Next, we're gonna grab a T30, get this little Torx bolt out of here, and then we can remove our rotor. And if you live out where I live, these things are rusted on already. We have all 11,000 miles on it. So you can hit it on here if you want to, but I do have a big dead blow, so we're just gonna hit right here on the surface, not gonna damage it, and let's get this thing loose. First of all, I'm gonna throw a lug nut on, just in case this thing wants to go flying on us. And then I'm gonna put some anti-seize in behind here when we put it all back together. There we go. So if you live in a salt climate, you might want to think about taking these off at some point, throwing some anti-seize behind there so they don't rust on permanently, because check that out. That's a whole lot of rust for not a whole lot of time out on the beach. But luckily through this process, we will have all the stuff apart and we can go through and make sure that everything is nicely anti-seized and good to go. Now we're gonna take a 5mm Allen and we're gonna get in here, get this ABS bolt out of here, and we can remove our sensor from the hub. That just pops right out of there. There's a little O-ring on it. So we'll get that out of there and then we'll remove it from our knuckle. So if you're like me and you ran into the issue with not being able to get your caliper to stay on that little hook like I had made, well, this one's pretty heavy, so it's a little bit too much for that little bit of metal. So what I ended up doing is grabbing a big zip tie, ran it through this hole right here, came out the bottom, and you can see we don't have any tension on our flex hose, and that's not gonna fall off and hit us in the head when we're trying to get these other components out of here. Next up, we're gonna be taking out the cotter pin for the upper ball joint, removing the nut, and we're just gonna strike right here on the knuckle, and it should pop our upper ball joint out. And even that bottom nut, we just got it loose, kind of hanging about maybe ½ an inch from the knuckle itself, just so we have some room for it to drop once we break the taper. And we're gonna get our hammer and hit it from the inside, and hopefully we get lucky and it breaks free. Then we're gonna grab a good hammer and go in from the inside, give this thing a tap, and hopefully it breaks free nice and easy for us. There we go. Now all you gotta do is just take your loose nuts off, and then you just wanna push in on this CV axle, make sure that it's gonna come out of that wheel bearing, and then you just lower it down and out. Next, we're gonna grab an 18mm socket. We're gonna go underneath the control arm here to our sway bar nut. Get that guy removed. So next up, we're gonna grab a 21mm, and that's gonna be for the head of our bolt for our strut lower hardware. And then we're gonna get a 24mm or 15/16 if you don't have a 24. That will take off this lower hardware. And then you're gonna wanna take 2 wrenches, a 24 or 15/16 on either side, and loosen off our cam bolts. And then that's gonna allow everything to kind of just swing down here as far as our lower control arm goes. And then we can get our CV axle out of the way. Difficult, there we go. Kind of just get your swaver link out of the way. This is just nicely gonna hang there. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go inside here where the CV axle meets the differential, and we're just gonna grab a pry bar, apply some light pressure until it comes free, and your axle comes right out. And watch out for the spline lube, because I don't know how many times I've been taking a truck apart that's got a lot of miles on it and that spline is completely seized in the wheel bearing, and we're like, how hard would it be just to put a little bit of some sort of anti-seize on there? Well, Dodge did it this time, so I'll wash my hands. It's way easier than beating out one of those that's rusted, and let me tell you. Then we're gonna grab a 15mm wrench, take off the 3 nuts on the top of the strut, and then we can remove the strut from the truck. Then we're gonna grab our 15mm and remove our sway bar mounting bolts. All right, so we got the front suspension removed. I'm gonna clean in here. I did remove my upper control arms as well because I'm gonna put the factory ones back in, but first I wanna go in here and nicely clean everything up, hit it with some Pour 15, make it look brand new again, just so when everything goes in, we have a nice clean thing to work with until we take it out to the beach and get it all full of salt water and sand and all that kind of good stuff again. But we're gonna try to combat that rust as much as possible. So that's pretty much all we're gonna get done tonight. I will see you guys in the morning. All right, so we're back in the shop, and I took a rag and some glass cleaner, went over and just got all that salt residue and all that garbage that was on the frame. Then we'll be ready to Pour 15 this thing, because there's a couple of spots where I've noticed a little bit of surface rust starting just because the paint got chipped off near where the cam bolts turn and all that. So we're gonna have that all cleaned up when this all goes back together. But now we're ready to continue our tear down of our factory stuff, starting with our skid plate 16mm. Then we're gonna take our rear cross member off, which is a 15mm and an 18mm. Let's get more of the stuff torn out of here. So right here we have our diff actuator plug. This is the lock. You want to slide this back and just push down and then pull back, and then the connector will come off. Now that we have our differential supported with our transmission jack, we're going to remove the 18mm hardware and the 15mm bolts for the front drive shaft. So as I know, most of you guys are going to find out that pulling the diff on this thing, it's not a very good engineering decision made, because they put a hole in the differential on the top 2 bolts, and then they put the head of the bolt on this side, so it goes that way out to the bracket, when instead they could have put the hole in the bracket and threaded the diff, and then it would have been 2 bolts going that way. Would have made life really easy, because there's a big harness that runs right here, and then you're fighting the harness as you're trying to get these bolts out. So Ram, if you're watching, thread the diff and put the bolt in the other way. You're going to save your techs a lot of time pulling these out. So now is when things get real, and we have made our line, which is 1 inch from our cam tab on the driver's side rear cross member. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut along this line all the way around, get rid of this piece of the cross member, and then we are going for the lifted life, because this truck is never going back to stock. Well, now that we've done our weight reduction on the same cross member, driver's side, rear cross member, we're going to take our tape measure, put it in the cam hole, measure 1.5 inches down, then we're just going to cut this little piece off right here. All right, so now the easy cut, opposed to the more difficult cut on the driver's side. We are on the passenger side now, rear cross member on the front. What we did is we measured 1.5 inches down from the cam hole, and then we just kind of made a line in alignment with the tab on the inside, and that kind of gives us this little triangle. We're just gonna cut that out, and we should be nicely clearance for our rear cross member. So now that all our brackets are installed in the truck, we're ready to put our diff back in. We're gonna grab the supplied hardware from the kit. We got our bolts, we have our lock nuts, and we're ready to put the diff back in. So now that our diff is back in, we do have this little plastic shield that goes a little bit too close to our drive line now. We're gonna measure 3/4 of an inch, and then we're gonna trim that just so our drive shaft won't touch it when we reconnect it. And there it is, we got our guard trimmed back, and I think I made the lines pretty decent on that one. So now we got our drive shaft reconnected with the supplied spacer and the supplied hardware, torqued them all down to 75 foot-pounds. Starting to look like a truck again. This is getting exciting now. So now at this point, we have our rear cross member, our sway bar lowering brackets, and our front cross member installed. Still loosely for now, but everything is in place. Now we're on to the next step. So now we got our control arms just loosely in place. What we're gonna do now is tighten up our top bolts for our new cross members. And it's a 1/16 wrench. If you have a 27 mil, you can use that as well. And I'm using a 27mm socket on the front, and we're gonna torque these down to 170 foot-pounds. So we're making some definite headway on here now. We have our cross members installed and torqued, and I got our new skid plate installed over top of our differential. Those are just torqued down to 30 foot-pounds. But all in all, this thing is coming together really, really nice, and it's only gonna get better from here. So just let me start by saying, just look at this thing. It's absolutely a thing of beauty. And the construction, everything, the way it looks, even just the colors of it, just really, really look good in this wheel compartment. I mean, I feel like this truck is becoming like a SEMA Baja truck or something like that. More pieces that I put on, but I cannot wait to see this entire system put together now that we put this beautiful piece of jewelry on the truck. And if you order a set of these Vertex shocks, let me tell you, you are not gonna be disappointed. These things are a beast. Hello everybody, it's me from the future, and I'm here to tell you about a mistake that I made, and you're probably going to be seeing it in the upcoming clips, on the fact that I actually took this line and routed it above the control arm. So do not do that. Don't touch those lines at all. Just leave them where they're at. The control arm goes through it just like this, and it loops up around just like this. So yes. Don't be like me, don't make that mistake. Don't think you're smarter than the stuff that you're working with, because you're gonna end up making the same mistake I did, and I ended up breaking a line on this driver's side in my testing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, route it like this. Do not use the reference of what I have in upcoming clips, because that is totally wrong. Rough Country, big thanks to you guys for helping me out with this. I totally screwed up. It was my fault, and they sent me a whole new shock to replace it because obviously with the line broken, shock's no good, needs to be recharged, all that kind of stuff. But they helped me out big time, and they're absolutely awesome to deal with. All right, so we've made a little bit of progress here. I have the knuckle in place. I haven't tightened the ball joints just yet. I do have the CV axle nut on there as well, not tight. And I've been hitting everything with some anti-corrosion stuff and cleaning up all the rust because, well, we have 11,000 miles. We drive on the beach, and yeah, there's a lot of rust. So keep that in mind. Get some anti-corrosion stuff if you're going to do this lift kit. It's just going to make life a whole lot easier when you're trying to get everything cleaned up. All right, so we're here for another beautiful day in the shop. We have pretty much everything done in the front. Everything is on. All the components that we can torque are torqued. All I have to do now is, once we have the rear done, we're gonna lower it down with the wheels on, and I have to torque our upper control arm bolts, and I have to torque our strut bolt and our lower control cam bolts just at ride height, just so it doesn't twist that bushing. We obviously don't want to torque it up at full droop. So that's what we're gonna be doing. Moving on to the rear and getting this thing completed. All right, everybody, so we have the truck together. I just have to go to the alignment shop so we can actually test this thing out and not worry about tire wear or anything like that. But that is planned for tomorrow. Hopefully we can get some better weather, and then we're gonna do the whole kind of reveal, showing you guys how it looks on the road, how it looks just out in the sunlight and everything like that. And it's gonna be awesome because this thing looks, I've already taken some pictures of it outside, and it just totally made this truck look completely different than before, and I'm very, very impressed with it. And if you guys get this for your truck, you're not going to be disappointed. This is a super high quality kit, and I was impressed every step of the way. So with that being said, I really appreciate you guys making it to this point on the video, coming along for the journey, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and as always, keep that hammer down.